How are we going, everybody? Well, I waited till the end of the day to do this job because it was a stinking hot day. 31 degrees, and that's the sun rays are scorching, so I let it go. We did a lot of watering this morning. We didn't get around to doing it this morning because we needed to hydrate the garden beds, and I've got to do that again after I finish here. So this is the bed that we built the other day, the raised garden bed, and if you haven't seen that little segment, scroll down, you'll find it. It's only been a couple of days ago. What we've got at the bottom, for those who haven't seen it, is polyurethane plastic. A few emails came through talking about weed mat and other types of liners that you can use as a base, and they're all great and they all serve a great purpose. The weed mat's excellent to allow moisture to get through, permeable that is, stops the weeds coming through on the top. I've gone with a solid polyurethane plastic because I want to keep as much moisture in his bed as possible. This is probably the hottest spot. If you want to understand how hot it is, have a look at the grass here. There ain't any, is there? Absolutely nothing. And if I walk around this side, yeah, come around this way, have a look. There's grass from this point onwards, so we are very dry. That's the root system that reaches out to this point here. Yes, we're hydrating, that's a bed I have to finish off, but put that aside. The point here is that we dehydrate really quick, and the afternoon sun, this is probably the last spot where it hits, so it is scorching. So what I've done now, polyurethane plastic, folded over to the side, nailed with a couple of pieces of wood on the outside to keep it in place. I've laid down bean straw. Now, as a base, bean straw, it's something different. You're not going to find it in your retail shops. If you're out in the countryside, you can look around the local farms. They probably have a few signs up on the highway telling you bean straw, sugar cane, and whatever else they grow, depending which part of Australia you're coming from. This is what I'm using. It's not as dense as pea straw, which is not as good in that respect, but what the benefit out of this is you get very little beans growing by comparison to the pea straw, which becomes, you know, flooded with beans or shoots everywhere. So we've got that as a layer, about 4 inches thick, and I don't mean 4 inches of fluff, folks. It's got to have some density in it. So when we talk about it, so that's 4 inches thick. It's not 4 inches of aerated, you know. So I could spread that out more like that if I fluff it up a bit, so I get more coverage. But when you water it, it goes down flat and it only becomes basically 1 inch, 25, 30 mil thick. So you want it to be about 100 mil thick or 75 mil compacted. So that's our base, and the purpose of that is so we can, you know, we get aeration at the base. We don't have stagnant water or no air pockets. They will compact over time. That's okay because we're also adding our pine bark. This is our aged forest, native forest bark that we've had sitting in the paddocks for probably a year or two, and it's breaking down. There was none of this fine particle when we first brought it in. It wasn't as loose as this, or sorry, as fine as this. So it's aged, it's beautiful, it's active, and this is going to be perfect for the microbes because they can inoculate themselves in the thicker particles, you know, the larger pieces, and stay there, and we've got more air pockets in the soil, and that's what we need. We need the moisture, but we need the airflow so that it's alive. Otherwise, if it becomes anaerobic, it's not good. So next, we're adding a layer of soil, and this is the really bad stuff. I won't swear, but I feel like it because look at it, it's just dust. Now we're going to bring this to life. And what we're going to do is basically add all our wonderful ingredients that we talk about day in and out. Have you named them yet? Chicken manure, charcoal, black grit, pine bark, mulch that is. We mix it through, worm castings as well. And then we add a little bit of water to activate it. And then we do it all again, layer upon layer. And we're going to get it up to about, 300-400 high above the ground. So we've got our soil in. Let's get our charcoal. Then a little bit of charcoal, and you don't need a lot of this. A couple of handfuls. So I'm only going to do this quadrangle here, this square here. We've got 4 of them. So I can just give you an idea of how we're going to do it. And see, the problem I have, folks, no, seriously, this is a serious note. I get up really early, about 5 o'clock, 5:30, by my videographer, anything before 10. Next, our black grit. So a handful per square metre. So we're 1.5 by 1.5 approximately. So what's that? 1.25 square metres. So a handful and a bit, as they say. This is a bit. There we go. And now we're going to put some chicken manure. Actually, no. worm castings. We've got some here. You don't need a lot of this. I might actually add some worms in here too afterwards when I get it nice and high, because the composting worms, they only work to well, approximately 100 mil below the surface. Earthworms go down deeper, and because I've lined it, there are no earthworms or compost worms. So yes, worm castings and worms are going to be added into that once I fill it up. And now we've got our chicken manure. Now this has been in our composting bins for at least 3 to 6 months. I've lost count. So a light layer. This isn't to aerate the soil. This is really just to help, you know, bring life into the soil with the microbes and the fungi. So we're going to give this a light sprinkle. We don't want to flood it with this. And I know many of you out there probably put a bag of chicken manure per square metre. And I just hope to the heavens above that the manure is well aged. Otherwise, everything will bolt or literally burn. There we go. That's what's that, 3 or 4 shovels. Plenty. And now for the native mix. This stuff, don't mind my back, folks. You can put heaps of it. You know what? This is the Greek way. There we go. You stay there. It doesn't matter how much of this stuff you put, really, folks, because at the end of the day, this is all going to break down and turn into a beautiful organic mix, a broken down compost where you can plant into it. So it won't be as coarse as it is now, and it's only going to be a few weeks away before it does actually break down to that point where you can plant into this without any added soil. Now for a little bit of water. That's the secret to activating all this soil. We're going to hydrate this first. We haven't filled it up yet, obviously, but we need to get some water down below on the soil below. So now you can see we've got layers going on here. We're going to hydrate the soil. Let's go through the layers. We've got the mulch here. There it is, and underneath that's the polyurethane plastic. Then we've put our charcoal, chicken manure and black grit and worm castings in here with soil. And then we've added our native mulch. You can use a pine bark if you like, or red gum chip, whatever you've got. Actually, you know what the good stuff is? The old stuff in your garden. So if you've got anything old like a mulch on the surface of your garden and you want to top dress it again, take that old mulch away if you need to build up a veggie garden and add it into the garden, because that's already breaking down for you. So what we're doing now, we hydrate this. I'm going to give it a light rake, and you've got to be careful because you've got the liner underneath so you don't puncture it. Otherwise, you'll put a hole in it. Now for me, I don't mind so much in this particular area because there's literally nothing growing underneath there. See, look at that, it's already dry. Well, it's still dry. So more water before we put another layer on top. All right, so we've hydrated the base. Now we're adding more soil on top. So we've put another 70, maybe 100 mil of soil on top. And mind you, that's going to compact again. So what you see here at this level, it's fluff. So it's gone down, what, 50 mil? So the whole thing will settle down like everything else has in this garden bed, but that's okay, because you're going to add some more each season or each year, depending. So what I'm doing again now is the charcoal, 3-4 handfuls. I'm just grabbing a little bit at a time. That worm casting, so we're going layer upon layer. If you've ever made a lasagna or moussaka, you do your layers, but unlike the moussaka or the lasagna, you don't go in there with a big kitchen fork and start stirring it up and mixing it. You leave it as is. You can do the same here. So if you don't want to be mixing it at all, like what I've done earlier on, so put your layers through, hydrate it and just leave it, and over time it'll work its way through and start to break down. I just like to speed it up a little bit. Now I don't want to have any sort of tight spots. One and a bit, here we are, or compacted spots in the garden, because as you know, this soil is already hard enough to keep hydrated, let alone having it sort of spasmodically mixed in areas and not in others. So now the chicken manure. Now the remaining bark that I have on top, we mix this through. Let's see what level we have. Make sure this doesn't fall over again. Bit more water, and then we mix it again with a garden fork, and maybe a top up of soil and another blend before we put our mulch on top. which is basically our sunscreen to protect our soil and plants. That's what mulch is. Oh folks, look at this. Still needs more hydration. Now it's a little bit coarse for what I normally do when I mix a blend like this, but because of this type of soil I have, the really sandy soil that it is, I want it to take a lot longer to break down and compact. It's going to settle down and I can put more soil on top afterwards and then more mulch as well. But let's have a look at this, what we've created here. Okay. Oh, isn't that delicious? Hey, have a look at that. Is there any worms? Look, we even got worms already. How do you like that, eh? So this is beautiful. We've got large, small, tiny particles. We've got manure, we've got bark in here. We've got everything we need to activate the soil. Now, once you've done this, depending on the type of manure you're using and how fresh or old it is or aged, you can let it sit for a couple of weeks. And I know we're right in the middle of the growing season, so this is pretty late in preparing a garden bed. But for me, at the moment, I reckon I've got another week or two before I have to get all my plants in, otherwise I may miss the boat. I want to put some corn in here. I want to put some more tomatoes, get this hydrated, but more importantly, I'm going to get the mulch on top so I can create the blanket to protect it at night and keep it cool during the daytime. So folks, get out there, prepare your garden beds, get your mulch, get your black grit, charcoal, worm castings. It's all available on our website. And yes, the sale has finished, folks. The spring has run out, so we're right into summer. Happy summers, gardening. And if you're looking for a great bargain, well, simply subscribe to our magazine and you'll automatically have VIP access to all our wonderful products at wholesale prices. It's all at vasilisgarden.com. From me, Vasili, Maresi.